Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about China, treaties, and talks. And I get to give some good news for a change. It's nice, especially when it comes to this topic. So, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Gen Z, they were a little bit stressed, judging by my inbox. I got a whole bunch of messages from people who are part of Gen Z who saw the headlines, saw the report saying that China now has 500 nuclear warheads, and it was concerning. And we went over, the amount of nuclear warheads that the U.S. has and how all of this works, and basically said it's China trying to achieve parity. This isn't something to worry about. There's nukes everywhere the whole time you've been alive. This shouldn't keep you up at night. And said that more than likely what would happen would be there would be tensions. Something would occur and China would experience something similar to the, hopefully not as bad, as the Cuban Missile Crisis. And at that point, talks would start. And those talks would be about how to regulate the strategic situation, the nuclear situation between the United States and China. Said that was most likely because I'm just totally unaccustomed to anybody being proactive on the foreign policy scene. It's just not something that we see happen anymore. But next week, those talks are happening without tension, which is cool. And China seems to have a super reasonable stance, which is also very nice. Chinese state media, the editor-in-chief of one of the outlets, put out, I guess what would count as an op-ed. But generally speaking, when you're talking about the editor-in-chief of an outlet that is basically an arm of the government, it is as good as a press release from the Chinese government. And basically, they said that the talk should center on explaining that China is concerned about rising strategic risks, and they want to achieve, quote, security balance, parity. It's what they're looking for. They want to make sure they have a deterrent. Realistically, they already have one, as evidenced by Gen Z's reaction. You do the math, that's 10 per state. They have a deterrent. But they probably want more. The op-ed says that China has to maintain its no first use policy, which is good. And then it should basically chastise the United States for constantly attempting to increase its nuclear power. Not necessarily by building more nukes, but by coming up with better ways to deploy them. Well, yeah, I'm going to say that's probably a talk that should be had. And then basically kind of express their irritation when it comes to the U.S. and Australia's relationship when it comes to the nuclear subs. That's their starting position for these conversations. Super reasonable. There are people who are saying that this is the opportunity to try to get China to come on board with the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons. No, don't even set that as an expectation. Way too early in the game for that. Way too early in the game for that. I would be absolutely shocked if that was even talked about right now. So basically, it's the last video, only we didn't have to have the scary part. And China's starting position, I mean, when you look over all of it, the U.S. is not going to give up the nuclear sub thing with Australia. Everything else is very, very nice. Like, it's a perfect place to start conversations. My guess is the communications lines that we talked about in that video, so higher level people could talk to each other immediately. That might be something that comes up during this. It's just nice to see a situation start to be diffused before it actually becomes a situation. It's a nice change. So that's the news. There's no bad part to go along with this. It's all proactive. There's nothing in their starting position that has been released that even looks like it would really cause a problem. I'm sure the thing with the subs is, it's one of those things that China will constantly say, hey, you shouldn't do this. And the U.S. will be like, yeah, okay. Just like the U.S. is constantly like, hey, you shouldn't pick on Taiwan. And China's like, yeah, okay. And nobody gives anything on those. Yeah, so for those who were concerned about it, particularly those who sent in the emails, it looks like you might be able to skip out on the scary part completely, because the talks are starting without that happening, and they're starting from reasonable places. So this may be, there's been a lot of comparisons to the Cold War. This may be more of a just chilly war as far as the tone of the near-peer contest with China. Starting off, the positions are just way more aligned and way more reasonable. China is very happy with its place in the world. So it may not be as confrontational as a lot of people pictured when this first started, because everybody was basically just looking at the Cold War and being like, yeah, I've already seen this one. So, yeah, all good news. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.